Hello guys, welcome to the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. This is part of a series in which I compare enlightenment and psychology. In the last episode I talked about the self and how it is our true self-consciousness and that it moves around. So when we wake up in the morning, it basically merges with our brain awareness and the avatar of this incarnation. When it sleeps or when the body dies, it moves to another dimension. And it can also rise higher up to the higher self, although we usually do not have a conscious recollection of that. If we enter into an emotional mode, like a fear mode or anger mode or disgust mode, our self-awareness, the soul, can be even drawn deeper into our body and mind vehicle. So that was the last episode. In this episode I will continue talking about the soul, but more about the transmigration of the soul, where it comes from, what it's doing here, where it is going, and how it is evolving. What is our soul really? Our soul is our cosmic avatar. It exists as long as the universe exists. Yes? And it is an array or an extension of the higher self. Now what does it mean? It means, for one, that it is of the same quality of the higher self and has the same capabilities and powers of the higher self, but it is able to take on an individual quality. The higher self is cosmic. The soul, although of the same quality, is individual, and it can incarnate. And this ability to incarnate and to have experiences is the soul's precious value. Where does the soul come from? Of course, from the higher self. We were once an inseparable part of the higher self, which you could imagine as its own kind of dimension or sphere or radiant, like a radiant sun that sends out individual rays into life. And this union with the higher self is what is frequently referred to as paradise. It's blissful, it is ecstatic, but it is also unconscious. We come from an unconscious union with the higher self. So souls, they descend from this, they kind of separate themselves from the rapturous union with the higher self, love, bliss, everything, and then they descend and split up from this unconscious union, and they go into a series of planetary experiences, which we call incarnation, in order to develop distinct self-consciousness. However, since we are a ray or an extension of the higher self, we never are really separated from it. Yes, what actually happens is that we forget where we are from. Yeah, so we suffer from some kind of an amnesia, but the connection is always there, and the higher self always guides and protects us. Well, the soul has planetary experiences, or astral experiences, if it is dreaming or in the in-between life. Now the soul, because of its curiosity, of its natural inherent curiosity, always craves for new and greater experiences. Of course, it can always find new experiences anytime, yeah? But in order to have greater experiences, it actually needs to evolve its capacity to experience. And the only way to evolve its capacity to experience is by evolving its consciousness. And this is where enlightenment comes in. Enlightenment is the process that continuously expands the soul's consciousness, both of the lower and the higher worlds, and its capacity to experience. This is a benevolent cycle. Experience, evolve the soul's consciousness. The evolved consciousness of the soul enables greater experiences, and the greater experiences it has expands its consciousness again. Where does the soul go? Well, the soul is not really going anywhere. The soul is having experiences, many different kinds of experiences, and ever greater experiences. Now, it definitely does evolve, and it evolves towards the ability to access other realities than just planetary experiences. And in its self-conscious, separate state, it is also able to experience higher aspects of itself, the totality of itself. So we have here a bit of a odd cycle. Yeah? So the soul comes from a unconscious union, rapturous, blissful, unconscious union with the higher self, and then it descends into individual, separate, self-conscious experiences. And many of these experiences are both painful and pleasurable. They are easy and hard, good and bad. But as we evolve, as the soul evolves and expands its consciousness, it will reunite again one day with the higher self. So we come from a union, create the self-consciousness, then go back to a union and drop our self-consciousness. That sounds a little bit weird, and it's important to understand what this is all about. Now, the purpose of creation and the universe is that the creator, who is represented by the higher self, is able to have adventures in his creation. He can descend somehow in his world, into his creation, and have experiences and adventures there. And that's what we souls do for the creator. Now, in order to do that, we can only do that if we have bodies with sensation. Yeah? So we can sense the physical world, we can sense planetary experiences, but we can also act with our bodies. Two things: senses and action. Nature gives us our body, and nature has evolved our body and our brain consciousness to a certain level, to the level of Homo sapiens. But it cannot evolve this body beyond this point without the help of the soul. So what the soul does, it takes the evolution, the natural evolution, to a new level. And in principle, it's very simple what it means. It means to be able to function both on the level of the higher self and on the level of planetary experiences. And this is the unique thing that souls are capable of. Neither the creator nor the higher self can act on the physical plane. most bodies on the physical plane can have no knowledge of the higher self and the creator, nor access to the totality of the self. So this is the art, to create an individual self-consciousness that is both aware, that can function on the higher and on the lower level. It's a merging of two consciousness, the consciousness of the body that nature evolved, and the consciousness of the soul, which is essentially the consciousness of the higher self. So through many incarnations and a lot of pain, we developed our individual self-consciousness. And now we are on the way of remembering our soul and our higher self. So the important role of our body and our brain awareness and all the adversity we are facing is to give the soul wisdom, understanding, and skills. Yeah. Most of all, focus. Yeah. When we are threatened, we focus. When we are scared, we focus. Yeah. A soul is a blissful being that has higher consciousness, but it has no focus. And we learn many other things, which we can only learn while we are in the body. Intelligence, yeah, making use of knowledge and apply it to the physical world, or reason, yeah, or emotional intelligence, yeah, courage, all these things. We will only learn it here on planet Earth or other planets. In paradise, nobody evolves. Another angle of explaining how important it is to bring the above and the below together is by looking at purpose. Yeah? So normally we live our life with three aims: survival, success, and fun. Yeah. But as souls, we also have other needs. Yeah, the need for beauty, the need for happiness, the need for love, and the need for enlightenment, and also the need for purpose. And the need for purpose really shows how important it is to merge these two levels of consciousness that we can both embrace. Because now we are not only able to experience, but we only can understand the purpose of our experiences, and that brings a whole new level of life to us. So, because we had to develop our self-consciousness, we were temporarily cut off from our memory of the higher self. We were never cut off from the higher self, but from our memory of it, from our recollection of it. But now we basically concluded this phase of our evolution to develop distinct self-consciousness, and now we are returning back to conscious union with the higher self, and we need to get rid of all these separative illusions that come with a distinct self-consciousness. And when we succeed in doing that, the higher self will be able to express through us its cosmic intentions. How does the soul actually evolve? Well, first of all, it evolves through experiences, and ever more greater and more meaningful experiences. Now, a very important experience in every incarnation is our heart's desire, the one thing we want to be during this particular incarnation. You can think of it as a big puzzle piece that will complete the soul. You can think of the soul as a puzzle, and each heart's desire, which is different from every incarnation as a puzzle piece, that will fill the missing gaps. And of course, our heart's desire, my heart's desire is to be an inspiring writer, by itself creates many experiences and many challenges that by itself already evolve the soul. Now, what does really happen here? What are the technicalities? The technicality is that from the experiences we have, the soul distills wisdom and understanding. Wisdom are cosmic principles which the soul can take with it into other incarnations. What is a cosmic principle? For example, the principle, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. Principle that always work independent of time, location and context. All the things that are relative to the context of the life on planet Earth will be discarded. What does understanding mean? Understanding means to place wisdom into the cosmic context. So think of principles as ideas that you can apply every time, but there's still a cosmic context. For example, the cosmic context that the Creator created the world to experience it, and now it created a higher self, and it created souls in order to descend into the world and experience it. This is the context of souls, our cosmic avatar. And the ability to understand comes with another capability which is almost inseparable of it, which is empathy. By going through good and bad experiences, we understand experiences better, we understand life better, and this is the only way we can also understand other people. So remember, the purpose of experience is to distill from them wisdom and understanding which you can take into the next life. So when the child grows up and it learns the language and it gets educated by the parents, what happens is that this generic wisdom and understanding of the soul marries with the particular knowledge and body of thought the child is exposed to. For example, a Christian environment or a Muslim environment or a Hindu environment. And just like a fetus develops in the womb of a woman, also the child goes through its previous stages of unfoldment. And that's when you can see how old the soul of a particular child actually is. So it quickly develops a deep understanding of wisdom and understanding in its particular context, be it Christian, Hindu, Muslim, or even agnostic or atheistic. And there is I would say there is a relationship between the intensity of a child's growing up and the age of the soul. So the more intense it is, and the faster the child actually evolves the older is its soul. Usually also an old soul goes through some kind of suffering, maybe not necessarily during childhood, but during adolescence and early adulthood. And the second reason for that is that the soul needs to, the incarnate soul, the avatar needs to acquire a strong intent of overcoming suffering, which then in turn will push its need and urge to acquire more knowledge and understanding, into which it can incorporate the wisdom and understanding it brings from other incarnations. So you can think of the wisdom and understanding of the soul unfolding like a flower during childhood and adolescence. And the older the soul, the faster and the more glorious the flower blooms. And that's not because that child is smarter or can learn faster. It is just because it just needs to remember rather than learning something new. So this usually happens until young adulthood, in the 20s. And mid-20s is usually the time when adversity strikes and when the soul needs to face the ordeals of its incarnation, and when it should acquire a new wisdom and understanding. And maybe those of you who are already a little bit older, you will remember that the mid-20s is the time when learning gets rough. Yeah, and because we acquire wisdom and understanding not just by reading. Wisdom and understanding are always learned the hard way by experiences. Yeah. So suffering in a young age is fairly normal for an old soul and serves various purposes. Yeah. I myself, I did not really suffer in my childhood, but I grew up with another lack of love. Yeah. And this actually created a very strong impulse in me to go out in the world and find it. Yeah. And so as soon as I was 18 and out of the school and out of the national service, which was mandatory at that time, I was off backpacking in New Zealand, Australia, and Asia. Yeah. Not just for the sake of traveling and freedom, but as I now understand, it was a search for true love. Yeah. It can also work the opposite way, and Buddha is a great example for that. He grew up in a very rich family, and he has never seen any sickness, death, or adversity which his parents apparently had hid from him all the time. And when the first time he actually left his palace, went out into the street and was confronted with suffering, with sickness and death, the shock was so great that he dedicated his life to ending suffering. What happens with the soul when the body dies? Yeah. So the first thing that happens is that the soul permanently detaches itself from the body, which is a short phase of disorientation. And then comes the memory picture, where the soul practically extracts all the life memory from the body-mind vehicle. That's what some people recollect when they have a near-death experience. Yeah, they see their whole life running in front of their eyes. Yeah. Okay, this is the soul who extracts to complete an accurate memory of its particular incarnation. After that comes a recapitulation phase where the soul more or less is forced to meditate about its life experiences. In particular, the wrongdoing it did towards other people. You can think of it as a great psychoanalytical session, afterlife session. After that, then comes the distillation phase. Yeah, so when the soul extracts the wisdom and understanding from the memory of experience. And this is very important, because if our vehicles would not have this capacity to memorize, and we would not have the ability to distill wisdom and understanding from it, we would start from scratch every time we incarnate, and there would be no evolution. Now, how exactly the distillation of wisdom and understanding functions, I cannot tell you, because I simply don't know. But it is akin to some kind of a reproductive process. That much I know. The essence of experience is then turned into seeds, into some kind of mental seeds, which we can carry over into our next incarnation. And these seeds, then when we incarnate, these seeds will then sprout and marry and unite with the particular knowledge or body of thought we grew up in, let's say Christianity, Islam, or some kind of agnostic philosophy. The soul goes through 7 stages of enlightenment, and these stages cannot be completed in one incarnation. We need many incarnations for that. We need hundreds of incarnations just to get to the 2nd level, and from there on probably a good dozen, 1 or 2 dozen more incarnations to go through these stages. Yeah, there are 7 basic stages, and I'm going to shortly repeat them here. The first stage is common sense. It's basically the stage 80% of all people are in. They believe only what they can see, hear, smell, and touch, and they limit themselves to the physical experience of the world. The second stage is a stage of awakening, and we awaken to the reality of 2 things. Firstly, that there are other realities than just the reality we experience right now, our experience of planet Earth. And the second thing is that we have that there is much more to us than meets the eye, and that's the awakening to the totality of ourself. Yeah, that we have a higher self and even higher aspects that are above the higher self. And when we have this awakening, we get this great urge or need to explore other realities as well as the higher aspects of ourself. The third stage is, I like to call it the stage of revelation. Yes, it's the time after we awaken. Of course, we get very curious. What are these other realities? What are the higher aspects of ourselves? So we talk to people, we learn, we read a lot, and basically collect as much theory and knowledge about these things we want to know as we can. And while we do this, we restructure our intellectual and our emotional bodies. Yeah. So what happens is that we throw out a lot of common sense and replace it with enlightenment principles. And this learning, this acquisition of theory, and this restructuring of thoughts and feelings then prepare us for the next stage, which is the great work. And the great work is much more practical, and it aims at a modification of our body-mind vehicle, which allows us to reunite with the higher self. Now, I will not go into that because this is outside the scope of the Inspiration and Enlightenment Workshop, which only deals with the first 3 stages of enlightenment. After the great work comes illumination, which is the realization and reunion with the higher self. The 6th stage is a stage of transfiguration, where our entire self, our soul, our body-mind vehicle, our avatar transfigures into something else. And last but not least is the 7th stage, which is cosmic consciousness, where we consciously reunite with the Creator, which you can think of as the higher self of the higher self. So as said a few times already, the immediate goal of the soul is to evolve to the point where it remembers the higher self. So it can function on the level of the higher self as well as on the level of planetary experiences. Now, this is the stage of illumination, obviously. And at this stage, the soul will get a choice. Yeah? And the choice is the soul can leave planetary experience behind and move forward, further upwards to experience even higher realities and higher aspects of itself, or it can remain and help other souls to go through the planetary evolution cycle. Thank you for watching this episode of the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. Please help spreading the light with a like and a share, and don't forget to subscribe. Love and light.